How's everybody doing today? Wow, yay, I'm good too. That was kind of a
This is the
really,
after lunch hour.
yeah, this is the after lunch hour. See a couple of glazed looks over there. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Let's talk about customer experience
Yeah.
today. You're the founder of Medallia.
Yeah.
Why did you start that company?
So I think, like probably a lot of entrepreneurs out there, I hate it when stuff doesn't work. And when I see a problem, I want to fix it. So my personal problem was I was a consultant. I was traveling all the time. I went to this hotel, five-star hotel in Stockholm. They didn't have enough non-smoking rooms. So I would check in on Monday. I would have to wait till Tuesday or Wednesday to get a non-smoking room. I'd check out on Friday. Front desk loved me. They would always try and move me as quickly as possible, but whoever had the power to create more non-smoking rooms didn't get the information, and I was just so frustrated. I wanted that information to go to the decision makers. In the meantime, I was telling friends and family, go stay at other hotels. I was locked into this hotel because of the travel agency we were using. But yeah, I felt like we needed to make big companies as responsive to their customers as small companies.
Nice. And when you were there, what really tipped it over the edge?
When I was in the hotel?
Yeah. What made you be like,
I just hate being in smoking rooms, and I was so angry. I just want, I don't know how many of you out there have had this experience where you just hate it so much, and you're trying to get something resolved, and then you say, oh, screw it, I'm going to do it myself. If this doesn't exist, I want to do it myself. So I was just so frustrated. Yeah.
Who else has been in that situation? Well, not the smoking rooms. I don't enjoy smoking rooms either. But, in a situation, why did you start your startups? Why are you guys even here? I feel like customer experience is so much about, the problems that we as founders have and solving those.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you took that to heart.
Yeah. It's been quite a journey.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the beginning days. You started this to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how you started that.
Yeah, well, because the original pain point came from hospitality, we focused on hotels. So we actually went and pitched a free pilot to Hilton. And we came back, and the next day was 9/11. And that was obviously catastrophic on so many levels, but we wondered, whether we were going to be able to even have a company because there was going to be no funding available, and the hotel companies, were really struggling post 9/11, and it turned out to be a really good opportunity to us, for us, ironically, because there became, newfound passion and how do we really connect with our guests and understand what they need in this time where they're traveling less.
Yeah. So when these entrepreneurs in the room are all starting startups, they're in very similar situations where there's something that bugs them or they see a need.
Yeah.
And you saw that need, you started a company. By the way, her company has been enormously successful. You went public last June. Last July, and congratulations.
Thank you.
It's been, it sounds like a really fun ride. An overnight success,
exactly.
as they say.
There's a lot of jokes about the overnight success.
Yes. How long ago did you start this?
We started in 2001.
2001, so definitely an overnight success.
Yes, a labor of love.
Yes.
Yes.
So, tell me about your first customer.
Our first customer. Our free customer was Hilton. Our first paid customer was Wyndham Hotels.
And how crucial was that in the beginning? Tell me about that experience on how you brought them on and what went into that.
Yeah, I think, we're really passionate about customer experience, but because of when we started, we couldn't really raise funds. So, our customers were truly our lifeline in a way that, was somewhat uncommon. They were funding us. So, we were almost co-developing this product and really, really listening to the pain points of our customers as we built it. So, yeah.
Now, a lot of the startup founders in here, obviously starting things, what mistakes do you see founders making over and over and over that's detrimental to their business?
So I mean, I've made a ton of mistakes. I'm sure all of you have made a ton of mistakes. But the only mistake that I think you shouldn't repeat is there's this tendency, as you go into, as certainly for me, as we started to grow, and you're constantly facing new challenges. The one time where I really regret what I did is when I deferred to someone who had more experience and I sort of suspended my judgment. I think you should be talking to as many people as possible. I think you should be soliciting as many expert opinions as possible. But when it's all said and done, you listen to all of it and you still make your own call. And whenever, like, my gut was telling me one thing, but I said, oh, but they have so much more experience, that's when I made a decision that I generally regretted. And even when you make a decision, on your own, using your own judgment, and it turns out to be a mistake, that's a beautiful learning because you have owned that learning in a different way than when you sort of defer to someone else and take their experience. So that would be my one thing. Just always, at the end of the day, defer to your own judgment.
Yeah. Now, when in an organization, as an organization grows, I mean,
Yeah.
when you went public, how many people were you?
Oh God,
Uh, a
oh,
lot.
yeah, several
A
thousand,
lot.
yeah.
Um, what, as you grow and as your company grows, from 1, 2, 3 to
Yeah.
40, 100, 200, what mistakes do you see with customer experience and the customers that you have? What mistakes do you see companies making?
Yeah, I mean, I think most startups are really, really focused on their customers because they have a really good understanding that this is their lifeblood. I think as you grow and you start adding people and you start adding layers, you can get really disconnected from the customers. And this is what we find with our Fortune 500 and Global 2000, companies. They get really large and they may not really understand the pain points that their customers are having and sort of new needs that the customers have. And so, I mean, even in a company our size, which, compared to our customers is quite small, I saw us getting farther away from customers just as you grow. It's almost a natural tendency. So you have to fight to keep that connectedness like you had when you were like a 10-person startup.
Yeah. I know we were talking a little earlier, and you were talking about how so many managers are so far distant
Hmm.
from any problem that happens in the organization, from any customer service. How do you keep your eye on the ball at all times so that you're constantly innovating?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is our proposition as a company is that we want to wire the entire organization from the front line all the way to the CEO with the information that's relevant to their role so they have the word of the customer in their ears. One of our applications is on the phone. We'll just have like random 10 feedback comments from customers that CEOs can scroll through when they're getting out of the shower in the morning. And it's amazing how just hearing from a few customers and being able to crystallize, not just see numbers or whatever, but to really understand the words of the customers, how powerful it can be in helping to inform decision making.
Yeah. I know with myself and the company that I run, just staying at that forefront and having me actually jump in and manage customer experience, customer tickets, customer this, talking with customers is so crucial to me and my organization. I've found some of the greatest lessons was when I jump in on those tickets. I remember this was about 2 weeks ago. I had not actually gotten a customer service ticket for my company in probably like 3 or 4 months. I hadn't even looked at it. And I jumped in there and literally 6 of probably like 30 support tickets were all about the exact same thing. And it had never occurred to me that that was an issue or was a problem. And I feel so many CEOs or founders, when you start a company, you have this grand vision of starting something, and you go off and you start building it, and then you work so hard on that, and then once a customer comes in the door, you forget about them. And it's like, no, I already got them. And it's such a big mistake that so many people, like, you have worked so hard, you paid so much time, energy, and potentially even money to get them there. Why are you not treating them like gold the entire time? That day was a huge wake-up call for me in the fact that I really need to be like in there every single day, at least fielding a couple things. And it kind of woke me up to that. And you know,
That's super impressive because one of our best practices is for senior management and the C-suite to have regular contact one way or another with their customers, and different companies do it different ways. I do remember one company that I won't mention the name of, but you know, there were people in the C-suite who said, "There's no way I'm going to call." The practice was they were going to pick up the phone and call customers
yeah,
like for 30 minutes a quarter, 30 minutes a quarter.
that's pretty rough.
And
That's hard.
there was people that were really
Struggle is
objecting to it,
real.
and one person needed like 2 days of coaching before he would actually get on the phone and start calling. Once they did it, they had the same experience that you did, where like, oh, I had no idea, this is so helpful. And you know, part of the reason that people sometimes resist customer experience is you have that image of the really angry, pissed off customer, and you don't want to deal with it. But customers are often incredibly grateful that you're listening, and I think that ultimately what customers crave most of all is it's not this idea of always having the perfect experience, but it's the idea of they're being heard. When stuff isn't working, you're trying to correct it. When they have an idea, you're listening to it, and they can feel it in that relationship. And so, if you get a call from a senior person in the company, you feel great. You're being heard, right? That's a good thing.
Yeah, you would also be shocked at how many times when you're actually hopping on with your customers, how many times things are not working at all. And you literally, I mean, if you're not a little embarrassed of your product, I mean, you've waited too long. So I'm super embarrassed of my product at times. But it's really astounding to me that people like will hop on the phone and they see this issue, they see this problem, and how patient they are with you. And if you give them the time of day and really help them, I mean, even some of our paid customers who are paying, you know, a lot of money for the product, they're hopping on the phone. They're being like, "Okay, you're doing great. We love this product. I know there's these 400 issues, but we're okay with that. Thank you so much for taking 5 minutes of your day to be with me." What are other like common mistakes that you find organizations making?
Excuse me. I think one of the worst ones, let me flip it and say a best practice.
Okay.
One of the best practices is to let give people wide berth in your organization to start working on customer experience problems and to solve them. I think what you find in large organizations is a lot of times they'll like limit like the call center person to very narrow scripts and very narrow tools. And I don't know about you, but I am like not a nice person when I get on the phone with one of these call center people who's reading from a script that is not solving my problem, and it's a lousy job for those people as well. So what we found in our organizations is the more you give, you push decision making down to the front line, the more you give frontline people the power to decide what they're going to do in situations, the happier the customer is, the happier the employee is, and the costs don't go up. So one of the fears is we can't push these decisions down because crazy things will happen. But in fact, a lot of frontline people have some pretty smart ideas about how to fix problems. I've got tons of stories about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I war stories. Now, I was actually going to ask you a little bit about a mistake that you've made in customer experience and how you thought was potentially the right direction and you flipped later on. Are there any situations like that? I'm putting her totally on the spot. This was not.
No, I mean, I think the biggest one is really to ignore problems and not to engage with it. And we all have, but in terms of us personally or our customers, which one are you talking about?
More yourself and
Yeah.
like things that you've done that you're like, oh, I would have loved to fix that. Or you came back and, like, for example, one that comes to myself was me not jumping into support tickets. That was one big problem what we had. Another big problem that I've had in the past with customer experience is sort of not ignoring issues and just being like, oh, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Or that's how the product is, or that's how this is. But it starts to really shine in your organization that if you start ignoring issues, that other issues will just compound and get worse and worse and worse. So I suggest to really.
So I think for us, I think one of the tensions for most entrepreneurs is how do you stay true to your North Star? And our North Star is customer experience. And then how do you also stay aware of new trends, new technologies. And so I'd say some of the mistakes that we've made, I think most of which we've corrected, is where maybe we got so narrowly focused on defining our customer experience North Star that we ignored some new technology that had an application in customer experience. Because there's so many new technologies now that customers are using to communicate, and so many technologies that they're using to interact. And so, I think that now we're doing a fantastic job of really trying to pull in all those signals. But there was also a time early on when we were much smaller and had far fewer resources, and then you think about this North Star and you're like, we don't have the resources to go after that. That's like off, that's a little bit of a tangent. But so figuring out that tension between staying true to what you are and then also opening it up wide enough to bring in, to decide which new technology and which new paths to explore. And I think keeping in touch with customers during that dialogue it will help you stay true to your mission better than anything else. Not listening to the hype in Silicon Valley, but listening to your customers.
Yeah. How do you suggest, I mean, there's a fine line between staying true to your customers and, improving your bottom line. And I know a lot of us in the room have accepted investor capital and we're expected to produce a return and move forward. And, you see all these companies that, get $100 million and they're expected to turn $100 million into a couple $1 billion.
Yep.
So how do you manage that line in an organization?
The way I talk about this now is, imagine you go into a store, your spouse calls you and asks you to buy something that you know nothing about. What if your spouse calls you and asks you to buy a vacuum cleaner? Yeah. What are the chances that you're not going to pick up your phone, look online, look at ratings and reviews, and buy based on ratings and reviews? Those ratings and reviews are simply collected, aggregate customer experience. So your customer experience is absolutely your brand in this day and age in a way that it wasn't even when we started this company. Yeah. And I think the power of your brand is completely linked to the kind of customer experience. So you ignore it or underinvest in it, at your peril in today's day and age.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing that in the stock market and a few other places on companies that haven't necessarily invested, and they've been really, really focused so much on their bottom line and returning that money to investors. I totally agree on, focus on your customer, truly, truly help your customer out. We have this big sign in our office that says radical help. And we love helping our customers and helping other people. And it's something that's core in my life and that has really, really helped me is the more you help people and genuinely help other people without wanting something in return. Most of our customer service, I'd say 95, 98% of our customer service is for a free product. Well, we don't make any money on it.
Yeah.
And the other 3% makes up all the difference in all these customer support tickets. So really, really help people out and try and, be the best at helping them to their core, get what they need with your product. Any last thoughts or, advice you'd give entrepreneurs in this room for creating the best customer experience possible?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned it before, but I think the biggest challenge is if you guys have amazing success, and I hope you all do, and you start to grow exponentially, it is amazing how fast you can lose touch with these customers as you hire middle management and things like that. So don't do it. Put in place systems, mechanisms, software that will help you, stay as connected as you are right now, because it is, it's really perilous in this day and age to lose touch with the people who are ultimately buying your product.
You guys, let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you.